Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Silver Lyming. I am here as your host. My name is Anne Desjardins, and the reason I put this podcast together is I really want to do my best to share stories of others who have recovered from Lyme and tick-borne illness to spread hope and awareness. And I remember all too well when I was in the middle of my fight, how desperate, how lonely, how dark, how crazy, how whatever you want to say with those feelings that I felt. And I would find stories of people getting better, and that was like soul food for me. That really helped give me better clarity, better hope, better insight, better everything in terms of latching on to a different way to look at this and to continue forward and propelling myself through the mess to get to where I am now, which is definitely in a place of health and wellness. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for the support of the Lyme community with this podcast, for people like my guests that I'm going to introduce shortly here, because we're really making ourselves rather vulnerable, if you will, to share what we've gone through, but we are all very compelled to do so because we know that it could help even just one person. And, if it's just one person's life that we save, one person that we're able to help through a really tough patch, it's completely worth it. And I wouldn't choose it any other way. I am very grateful for the place that I've arrived at. And I also just want to mention, this really isn't meant to be medical advice per se, but this is again to give you some hope and insight into things, and also to give you possibly some ideas of things maybe you've not thought about and a different way to look at what you're potentially experiencing with chronic Lyme and tick-borne illness. And again, just some different ideas about things that you could try for yourself that maybe will work for you. And my next guest that I have today here with me is Cara Peebles. She was connected to me through a different connection, a different Cara. And I'm very grateful for that as well, because it just lets me know that I'm going in the right direction with things, that people really do care about these kinds of stories, that it is very important for us to keep sharing the stories of those who have recovered. So, Cara, thank you so much for being here with me today. I know that you're kind of in the middle of quite a few things today, and I just really appreciate your time that you're willing to give to me and this audience just to share again your story of recovery and how you've gotten better. So if you don't mind, if you would just introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about how you became involved in the world of Lyme and tick-borne illness, please.
Thank you for having me on. I'm always happy to share my experience, because if there's anything I've learned through the struggle, like you and most other Lyme survivors, if you can help or share experience and at least help one person, then it makes some of the pain worth it, right?
That's right.
I'm from upstate New York. I moved to Northern Virginia about 9 years ago, and not even a year after my family relocated, I started having these random like aches and pains. And I didn't think anything of it at first. I was training for like a sprint triathlon. So I chalked it up to like maybe getting older, maybe my knees were achy because I was lifting. My neck was always sore, but I thought it was because I was on a bike all the time training for this triathlon. Um, I've always had like a little bit of exercise induced asthma, so I didn't think twice about my chest being tighter than normal. So I just had these like random things. I never had a bullseye. I never had um, any of the effects that a lot of people notice when they first get bit by a tick. I don't even know if I was bit by a tick, to be honest. So I'm not sure at what point the Lyme disease symptoms started to affect me. But what I can say is after I finished that triathlon, I had a business trip in Mexico. And within a few days, I started feeling really run down and flu-like, to the point where I was at this event that my company was hosting with coworkers and business partners, and I could not pull it together. I was on a couch, almost curled up in a ball. I couldn't breathe. Everything hurt. My ears hurt. My head hurt. I just felt flu-like. I call it limey. But I was so sick that my boss was like, "You need to go home a day early." So I flew home a day early, and I'm walking through the airport, struggling to breathe, thinking to myself, I just did a triathlon. Why can't I breathe right now? What is happening to me? And so I got home, and I don't know if my husband at the time was busy working, but my girlfriend's like, this is not normal. Like, this is not normal. We're taking you to the doctor right now. And I ended up having double ear infection, bronchitis, and strep throat. I was like, oh, well, no wonder I feel horrible, right? So sometimes with Lyme disease and other autoimmune issues, what I've learned is when you're at a constant state of like high exercise, your body's used to that. So the minute that you stop at that same place or lower it, your body has a chance to then start fighting or showing what's really going on. So I think what happened was the minute I took a break from all the training, my body's like, wow, it's time to party. And I just never got better. I was on antibiotics for all the things. I never got better. And I remember telling my husband, like, man, every time I go to, I'm a CrossFitter. And every time I would go to CrossFit, I'd come home and have to take a 2 hour nap. And
Mm.
the breathing wasn't getting better. And I wasn't getting better. And I have a friend who unfortunately has struggled with Lyme disease and she's come out the other side. So she's like a resource for me. And she's like, you live in Northern Virginia, you should probably get tested for Lyme disease. I'm like, okay, whatever. I grew up with like I work in the firearms industry. I'm around hunters all the time. I understand ticks with animals and whatever. I just never really understood how debilitating it could be if a human got Lyme disease. It's just so foreign to me. So fast forward, I go to a doctor. I have both of the Lyme tests, the ELISA and the Western blot done. And like if anyone's familiar with how those tests work, they have to be very specific to actually say that you have Lyme disease. And I reached out to my friend who is like my main resource, and I owe her all the glory for helping me get to where I was quickly, right? Some people struggle for years to figure out what's really gone wrong with them and they're misdiagnosed and things like that. And I was lucky that after I took these 2 Lyme tests, she knew that there's one band of an either IgG or IgH that it only tests positive for Lyme disease. You've probably discussed this on other podcasts. And I had it. And she knew it. So she said, you need to get to a Lyme literate doctor, which I did. So by the time I first got sick and the time I actually realized I had Lyme disease, it was maybe 2 months, which is
Okay.
very short in the span of
Yes.
most people getting diagnosed. So I felt grateful. I remember almost feeling relieved, like, okay, it's not cancer. I know what it is, and it's treatable. I didn't know that people struggle their whole lives with Lyme disease and sometimes lose their lives because of the side effects of Lyme disease. I just was like, wow, this is all right. I know what it is. I can fix it. I'm a
Yep.
fixer. And we did the blood work. I remember her saying, make sure your husband goes with you to the doctors because he's not going to believe that your laundry list of symptoms from the brain fog to the sore knees to the back to everything is going to be all included. Like, here's Lyme disease, and all of these things are included with it because it just doesn't make sense that it could affect so many different parts of your body at once. Um,
Yep.
and so, yeah, so we did a very specific blood test with a Lyme literate doctor, and that's where my treatments began.
Okay. And so, yes, in a sense, you did get lucky, if you will, in that you found
Mhm.
it pretty quickly. Again, for people who are listening, the longer that you go with Lyme and tick-borne illness, the harder it is almost to get rid of it, just because it's a corkscrew-shaped organism and it really burrows deeper into your body tissue and organs. And so it goes to places where antibiotics and other things can't readily get to it to get it out of your body. So, generally speaking, people who catch it right away and treat right away, my understanding is about 70% of those people will go on and not have any lingering effects from it. But that nonetheless doesn't lessen your experience of what you had to go through and what you felt, and like the head game in a sense of like, well, what is wrong with me? What is going on with me? Something truly is wrong with me. All of these wild symptoms just pop kind of out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, is it cancer? Is it this? Is it that? It mimics so many other things. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, when you're somebody who's like high performing and very healthy, and then you find yourself in a space of your body's kind of playing tricks on you and ambushing you, it's like, what happened here. So,
Yeah.
um, once you were able to go to that doctor and you got diagnosed properly, was it a quick recovery for you? Did you find it was a little bit trickier? Did you have to try a couple different things? What were you able to do for yourself to get yourself better?
I, well, first I'm going to back up and also say that in the process before I got to the Lyme literate doctor, they had me go to an ENT
Okay.
because they could see an infection in my mouth, but then I went to my dentist and my dentist was like, "You're fine." So they're like, "Okay, something's going on." Then they had me go to a lung specialist to get lung x-rays to make sure I didn't have lung cancer. I was like, "Holy moly." So there's a lot of scary situations that were happening in the background in those
Mm,
2 months. And to your point, when when you catch Lyme disease soon, you
yes.
can catch it before it becomes chronic. And that's why if you do get the Bell's palsy or you see a bite or you see a tick or you get the bullseye, it's almost a blessing because you know when you can nab it with probably doxycycline before it becomes chronic. And I
Yeah.
don't know when or how I got Lyme disease, so I don't know how long I'd struggled. So I was chronic, even though I got diagnosed quickly, it was already in me, like
Yeah.
all the places. So to
And
answer your
actually,
question
I'm
about,
sorry. Oh, sorry. I also
okay.
now have another question with like,
Yeah.
so were you noticing any small signs and symptoms before you went for your marathon? Like, did you have other things happening in your health history before this
Hmm.
moment? And then potentially maybe that race was a trigger of just a lot of stress. And as you say, like once you let off the gas, your body was just like, and like all these other
Yeah.
things started to happen to you.
Well, like I mentioned in the beginning, I think that the things I was feeling that I thought were because I was training for this race, think they were all Lyme related. Like my knees ached beyond belief. My neck, mostly my neck, that was the first place. I'd never had neck pain. And it
Okay.
was the first place I was like, wow, what is going on with my neck? I used to stand in the shower and just like let the water pelt me here. And I'd had my husband like really like rub my neck. And I thought it was because I was on a bicycle like training and
Okay.
that like just being on the bike was hurting it. I
Okay.
had a little bit of brain fog, but I just figured, well, I'm just, we moved. Allergies, I figured it's because we moved. I found a different place to put all of the things that were happening to me.
Okay.
I,
Thank you.
I'm like, okay, it's this, it's that, whatever. Uh, so when I first started getting treated, I got treated with doxycycline like most people do, but because it was already chronic, all it did was make it worse because the herxing reaction really took me out. And I remember starting to stutter. I remember going home to New York and not being able to keep my eyes open. And my brother's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I could not function as a normal human being. Like I wasn't remembering things. I was struggling to like work on my computer for a long period of time. I ended up going and getting different glasses because they said my vision and my brain were being affected by the Lyme, and then I needed some specific, very expensive prescription glasses. It really affected everything, and then above and beyond my energy level. My doctor's like, if you have Lyme disease, instead of waking up having a full bottle of water of energy, right? You wake up with this much. And with
Mhm.
this much energy, do you want to heal your body or do you want to work out and have this much left to heal? So I remember telling my CrossFit coach I had to take a break and crying because Lyme is so elusive and invisible to some people. You can't see it. Other than like when I started getting really sick with the herxing reactions and everything like that, I appeared normal. But I couldn't pull my stuff together. I didn't have energy to shower every single day. So it might look like I was fine, but I wasn't. And you know more than anyone how that is. So the doxycycline really crushed me, but it did nothing because I was already chronic.
Okay.
And I believe, and I'm no doctor, but the doxycycline prevents it from being chronic and it takes the infection before it becomes an infection. And it's strong. My youngest son actually was on it for a little bit and it crushed his stomach and his skin. And it didn't do anything for me. So then we did a treatment called pulsing antibiotics, which, like you mentioned, because Lyme is a spirochete, it's corkscrew shape, and there's antibiotics that fight a circular infection or bacteria. And there's antibiotics that fight the square, the rectangle. They all have the shapes, and each antibiotic fights a different shape. And Lyme is so tricky that it changes its shape. So the minute you attack it with one antibiotic, it goes from circular to flat, right? And then you attack it with a flat antibiotic and it goes to something else. So it's just this mess. And the way my doctor described it was that you have to take different antibiotics. So the minute it changes its shape, you're attacking with that shape. And then it's also throwing off all of your gut biomes and everything like that. So then not only now am I taking 8 antibiotics, I'm on like 7 supplements to try to balance what good I had left in the inside of my body. And I did that for about 3 months. And in the process, I remember having this conversation with he's my now ex-husband, but we were married at the time and had this conversation about how I wasn't getting any better. And I went from nonstop, like never sitting down, never relaxing, barely even watching TV, to being on the couch 24/7. And my kids were like, "You're taking another nap? Mom's napping again?" Like my boys were young. They were probably in they were in fourth and sixth grade when we moved to Virginia, so maybe fifth and seventh when this all started happening. Busy with sports, busy with life. We just had a busy life. My husband traveled all the time. And I remember being like, who's cleaning my house? I can't clean my house. I can't even shower. I can't even wash my hair. Who's cleaning my house? And I'm lucky in that he was always cooking, helped with the boys, like took care of things as far as that goes. But I couldn't work, and I was a freelance. I'm in marketing and PR, freelance at the time, and I was supposed to go to a trade show, stand on my feet for 4 days, talk to people, whatever. I made a lot of money when I traveled because there's a lot of billable hours. And my husband's like, you can't do that. Like you're gonna embarrass yourself. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, Cara, you stutter. You would see somebody that you've known for 20 years and not be able to remember their name. You will be exhausted. You can't even walk up the stairs without like losing your breath. There's no way you're traveling to Vegas. And he was absolutely right. Like I couldn't get it in my head that I just wasn't who I used to be. And it was driving me nuts. Like, and then on top of all that, then you're depressed. And
Yes.
then your lifestyle's completely changed and you can't be social because you don't have it in you. And I'm lucky that I had friends that they would come and see me. I would still go to my kids' games, things like that. But the core of who I was just kind of died in some ways. And like, I remember getting ragey at one point because I'm like, I didn't feel like he understood how bad I was feeling. And we had this conversation and I had heard about this alternate treatment that we were talking about earlier. It was a nebulizing treatment for Lyme. My friend had done it. Her whole family was treated, and everybody was clear of Lyme disease, like cured, not even just better, but cured. And I was trying to convince, my husband that I needed to do that. And, we're already like tens of thousands of dollars into treatment. Nothing was covered by insurance. And obviously, it was kind of like a bone of contention because I looked probably okay, but I knew that I wasn't. And I had to have like a meltdown and make him understand. He's like, "No, you're getting better, I can tell." I'm like, "Ah." And and I had to have a meltdown and just be like, "I'm not getting better and I'm never gonna get better. And it's gonna get worse if we don't do something different. I'm done. I'm done." At 3 months after the second treatment, I was like, "I'm done. I'm doing it. I'm doing this other treatment." So I did. And I went into it very positive. In the meantime, I was also going through my certification to become a yoga instructor. And, and part of that, I was supposed to take a certain amount of classes, right, every week. I couldn't even teach you. I couldn't even like take yoga. I mean, not only did I have to step away from CrossFit, but I barely could walk. Definitely wasn't running or riding my bike. And now I'm trying to become a yoga teacher. I couldn't remember anything because my memory was shot. And I was supposed to take classes. I couldn't even move. Like stretch and yin yoga became my ultimate like lifesaver because that's all I could do. And so there's all these other things going on. finally get the Lyme end treatment. And I remember thinking, like it burned a little bit and you had to like, you couldn't diffuse oils. You couldn't wear perfumes. You couldn't cook with oil. So my husband, who is an amazing, amazing cook, is trying to be very careful with what he was cooking with because he didn't want to like risk anything, right? And also Lyme is known, which not everybody knows, but once you've had it, a doctor will tell you it is transferred in your saliva. Just like any sexual disease, even though it's not an STD, it's transferred. It's in your blood, it's in your saliva, it's in your fluids. And so before I started this treatment, my husband got tested. He was fine. My kids both got tested. One tested positive, one did not. And I no longer shared waters, no longer shared drinks. I didn't kiss my husband with saliva the entire time I was doing that treatment. It wasn't worth it. So we protected ourselves in all the ways so that he wouldn't get it and then give it back to me.
Yeah.
It just got really, really serious really fast. Like, wow, look at all these precautions we have to take so that I can like live again. And never once did I think, oh, I have it so rough. Like I always was thinking like it's gonna get better. It's gotta get better. It's gotta like I know other people have it worse. Other people have things that are not treatable. I know while I was going through this treatment, there was a gentleman within the industry that I worked that did pass away from Lyme disease because a guy into his heart, an older gentleman. So like then you start once you're in it, then you start hearing of everybody else that's in it. It's like you buy a Jeep and then you realize, wow, everybody's got a Jeep. It's the same thing. The minute you're immersed in something, you're like, it is everywhere.
Yes.
So I started Lyme N and I wasn't able to keep consulting doing my marketing anymore because I wasn't able to work anymore. I feel like I spent 6 months on the couch, like trying to just heal and do nothing. And for someone that's never sat still, it was a struggle. And
Yeah.
then to be worried about what my kids are going to think and is this going to traumatize them for life? Like, and there's nothing I could do about it. Um, so moving forward, the Lyme N and the doctor told me it's going to be kind of like a little roller coaster. And when I have explained it to people that have reached out to me to kind of guide them on what to expect, I tell them that. I tell them you're going to have like a good few hours and then you're back to normal. And then you're going to have a good few days and then you're back to Lyme. But then your good days last longer, your bad days are shorter, and the roller coaster doesn't have so many highs and lows. And one day you're like, wow, I haven't felt sick all week. I haven't taken a nap all week. And so yeah, that's where my treatment ended up was with Lyme.
Yeah, that's great. Because again, you're not my first guest to have talked about this, but um, that other person, I'd never heard of it before, right? Like I've been in this space now for probably 10 years, helping people with Lyme and tick-borne illness and having fixed myself. It took me 7 years to get a diagnosis. It took me another 7 years to fix myself. And a lot of ups and downs. That's what I always tell people too, is it's not a straight line to wellness. It's a lot of ups and downs, but I've heard of a lot of different things, but I have not heard of this particular treatment before. And so I'm encouraged to hear yet another story of someone recovering from this. And my understanding is it's maybe a 60-day treatment protocol.
Yeah, I believe it's twice a day, the exact same time of day for 60 days, and you nebulize it. And the reason for that is you're like, it's in your bloodstream and
Yeah,
you don't want the Lyme, once you're like to the Lyme, you don't want those spirochete and the bacteria to come back. So
right.
you got to nebulize it again. So you just like hammer, 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 and then slowly but surely you start to have good days. Like I remember the first day that I showered without being so exhausted afterwards. I remember um going to like a Super Bowl party and being like, look at me. I'm social and I put makeup on today. And then I mean, and they say too, there's sometimes getting better is about how bad you want it. Did I want to give up the gym? No, but I wanted to get better, so that wasn't a priority at that moment. And then there's five, foods that kind of make Lyme have a party: caffeine, alcohol, sugar, dairy, and gluten. I gave it all up. I lost
Mhm.
probably 15 pounds and all of my muscles, and it's like, but it was more important to feel better. And for me, my Lyme disease came with a lot of food allergies, and anything that I was sensitive to, it seemed like all my favorite foods, like eggs, garlic, peanuts, no more. So I gave up all the things just to try to get better. And you don't miss alcohol for 6 months when you can actually get out of bed and hit the floor running like normal. So above and beyond the treatment and the things that you have to do and not do because of Lyme N, I gave up all the other things too because I wasn't willing to risk it. And I was on the couch one day and I had been staring at my stairs. I'd only lived in this house for like a year. I had this disgusting like carpet runner. And I remember like I am ripping that sucker up. And I did. And my husband comes home, he's like, "Oh, you ripped the carpet up." I'm like, "Yeah." And he looked at me, he's like, "You had the energy to do that?" I'm like, "I did."
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was kind of like, for me, it was like my first getting back to normal. It's like, here we have this house that's been sitting the way that it's been sitting because I haven't had energy to clean. We ended up hiring a cleaning lady, and I was like, finally had energy to do something and get off the couch. And then, I would have a couple bad days and get so scared. I'd be like, I'm feeling limey again. I'm achy. My ears would hurt when I would eat dairy. My joints would hurt when I ate gluten. The beef allergy is one thing I still have. Like,
Huh.
I've tested clean for Lyme. Like, I've had my saliva tested. I am good to go as far as Lyme goes, but I still have some like remnants. And I know it takes a long time for your body to recover once it's out of your system. Just like you quit smoking, your lungs don't get better in a day. It takes a long time to repair all of that internal damage. So I know that it was taking a while, and the brain is the final thing to recover. And yeah, I would get scared when I would start to feel like limey again or whatever. And but now I feel like, I mean, and after I started, even after I tested positive, I still had days where I felt limey. I still had
Okay.
days where if I ate dairy, my ears hurt. I slowly, even after I was better, slowly and gradually added things back into my diet. I still don't go crazy on the dairy. My stomach's like, what are you doing? I still watch my gluten, but I don't avoid it completely. I'm trying to live because I can. I cannot eat beef. I'm going to try something to try to fix that eventually. But for the most part, I'm back to normal. And I did have some other autoimmune issues that kind of reared its head that I think maybe were, um I mean, they say it sometimes if you have Lyme disease and you have breast implants, sometimes it makes everything worse because your body's fighting these implants that are random things in your body. It can't fight
Yep.
anything else. And I remember
Yep.
when I was really sick with Lyme disease, my cousin sent me this article about it, and she's like, "Hey, I had a friend, and once she got these removed, she was better." And but then I didn't feel like I had to do that because, well, Lyme cured me. Well, fast forward, I'd have good days and bad days, but I still felt limey here and there. I still had like bronchitis all of the time. There's still things happening to me, but I'm like, it can't be the Lyme because I'm cured, right? Well, come to find out, I also had breast implant illness,
Okay.
and I had one that was leaking. And when I say the minute those things were removed from my body, my skin was better, my hair was better, everything was better. So, I mean, the thing that Lyme disease taught me, other than listen to your body and it's okay to relax. Like, I take a nap now if I'm tired. I
Yes.
listen to my body. And if something is off, I'm going to be my own advocate. I'm not going to wait for someone else to figure it out. I'm going to be my own advocate, and I'm going to lean on the people like you and people that have been through what I've been through as resources, because yes, Google and MD is great, but I feel like knowing people that have experienced it, and firsthand it's worked from people you trust, that's where it goes. So I think of all of this, I've always believed that anything you go through is an experience so that you can help somebody else. So I will never be upset about that because I know I've helped people. And I
Yes.
love that. But then now that's led to the other things, like making people aware that it's not just Lyme disease. Or I have friends that have been sick for years and like, it's your implants, you know? So it's made me more aware of my body as a whole and listening to
Yes.
my body as a whole. So not only being an advocate, but knowing when something's off and doing something about it right away, you know?
Yes. It's one of the
So
greatest lessons I've gotten to is just to be my own best advocate. And that's what I always tell people. It's like, you're going to have to be your own best advocate through this. Like, no one experiences it the way that you do in your own body and your own skin. And, doctors care, they want to help, but a lot of times they don't necessarily know the right answers, especially with something like Lyme you had mentioned before. And I have always called it the ultimate shapeshifter.
yeah,
It is like, if you want to see something miraculous in terms of shape-shifting abilities, check out Lyme because it
yeah,
can just do so many different things, come and go in so many different fashions and forms in the body. And that is partially by design of the organism, right? But it's like you can't really fault doctors in a sense because it mimics so many other things and it looks like so many different things. And so you have to really do the hard investigative work on your end, which can be challenging when your brain's not working, when you can't think right, when you can't anything
yeah,
right. And so
yeah,
if you can get support on board, like it sounds like you had some good support, at least
I
through your
did.
family and
Hmm.
people that were, understanding of the situation that you're going through, friends that were still coming to visit you, even though you can't get yourself up off the couch. Like that makes a huge difference just to have people there to like give you more of a soft space to land. And you're not the first guest that I've had on here talking about breast implants. And I had another guest, Alyssa Lascala. She's somebody that is here from my community. And she had hers taken out, but she had mold growing in hers. I don't know. Did you have
Uh-huh.
mold
I
in?
did not, but I have a friend that did, two friends that did.
Yeah. And I know, again, from a lot of different interviews I've done now, mold is a huge component in this fight as well. So if you're listening and you're suspecting that you've got mold going on in your environment, I'd say try to tackle that one first, just because that's an immunosuppressant and that'll really keep your immune system down. And you can be doing all these other things to help your body heal and still just not get quite there because you've got that mold that just keeps
Hmm.
coming into your body and keeps pushing you back into sickness. So I'm really glad that you're able to figure that out. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people don't quite understand, like when we put foreign things into our body is not really sure what to do with that, right? And like when you have Lyme going on, it's sometimes not a strong enough infection for the immune system to attack it really. And if you had the implants going on and that was causing some sickness, maybe your body was focusing its energies on that.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, then
and
you add in the food, any food sensitivities that you have or outside allergens. It's like your body can only fight so much. And
correct.
I don't know if you ever experienced this, but like I would wake up covered in hives.
I had hives.
I'm
Yes.
like, what did I do? I didn't do anything different. I wasn't even
Mhm.
using scented lotions because I was so trying to be so clean and so great and do everything right to get better. And oh yeah, the hives, the rage. It's just crazy how it affects everyone differently, right? Some people have Lyme disease and they seem to be able to live with it fine.
Totally. They have no
Doesn't ever
symptoms at
bother
all.
them. And then
Hmm.
some people, like I've seen like high school age men go from straight A's to D's and
Yes.
from happy to depressed. And then, I've seen what it's done to me. It's just crazy how it just doesn't pick and choose. It just hits everybody differently.
That's right. It's the one thing that's non-discriminatory. Like it will get you
Hmm. Yeah.
if it's it doesn't matter what color you are, man, woman, whatever. Like it knows no boundaries that way. And I'm also curious when I keep hearing you say rage. It could just be like I think of that a lot of times as like inflammation in the brain, right? It's causing your brain to function differently and makes you
Hmm.
maybe more angry or more whatever. But did you have any co-infections going on? Did you know was it just Lyme for you, or did you have things like Bartonella or Babesia, anything like that?
No, I think I did take for Bartonella, I believe. I took a brain detox for that, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay.
Um, maybe it was called Panella. I can't recall, but the whatever co-infections I had weren't super significant,
Okay.
but my brain was definitely affected,
Mm,
which is why like I couldn't like my eyes were all messed up and I couldn't focus. I couldn't even like read my computer to work. I was stuttered. I couldn't remember things. I felt like, I'm like, what am I, 5 years old again? Like, why can't I think? Why don't I remember? Like, and we can make a joke about it because now looking back, it's almost like I was always on drugs or always drunk or something. And in some ways I was on drugs. All these drugs trying to get myself better. But when you're trying to fight a disease and the disease is fighting you back, it makes all of your symptoms worse. And that's what I've explained to people with Lyme. Like you're going to have a herxing reaction because the Lyme is going to be really mad that you are fighting it and it's going to fight back and it's going to get crazy. And so you always get better before you get worse. And no healing is linear. I don't care what you're healing from, whether it's your heart, your brain, or your body. It's never linear. It's always all over the place. And it's scary when you start to feel good and then you don't anymore. You're like, uh-oh, I'm going backwards. I'm going backwards. It's a really scary place. And there's times now where I have a hard workout and I'm like, uh-oh, why do I feel run down? I feel limey, I feel achy. And there's not, but like my body's feeling a different kind of stress right now. So again, now that I know my body so well, I am super in tuned and I know if something is off and chances are I know why it's off. So
Yes. Yes.
um,
So
yeah,
that's kind of a good gift in a sense that you received from your experience.
it
And
is.
may you tell me, Cara, how long ago was this that
It
you
was
went through this?
almost 8 years ago.
Okay.
Almost 8 years ago. And I remember when, because I have time hop and it pops up. And I remember I was like, kind of taking videos of my Lyme. And at the time I was blogging about it, which is how some people have found me and reached out about it. And, I have some caps on my teeth and the Lyme is pretty strong. It's all natural, but it's pretty strong. And I remember one day, one of my caps just fell out of my mouth. I'm like, what is happening? But here I've been walking around with this crazy infection. Lyme affects everything.
Yes.
And my mouth just wasn't strong enough. My gums were inflamed because of the infection. And then you add the Lyme and it's like boom. And I was like, man, because this treatment wasn't expensive enough. Now I've got to get new teeth.
Yeah. Great. Just what you
Yeah.
needed to add on to
But
things.
yeah, I mean, and I can look back and laugh now, but I was not laughing at all. I was trying to stay positive. I was trying to keep it together, but it was a struggle. And I am lucky. My kids were older. My friends were supportive. Other friends were resources. My husband at the time, he was trying to be as supportive as he could, even though to him it kind of looked like I was kind of fine. But he knew. He's like, "Whoa, he had never seen me just down and out before.
Yeah.
That's just not my personality. So it gets scary when you're in
Yeah.
that space. And I'm just so glad I got to pull out of it before I got too dark. There's people commit suicide because they're so sick of the struggle and they're in so much pain. Other people turn to illegal drugs. You hear all these horrible stories, and I just feel so grateful that I never got to that point. And I had people that would have pulled me out before it got there. But it's sad because I could see how it just takes over everything.
Yes. When you don't feel well every day of your life, it's a really hard thing to sometimes pull yourself forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of times too, it's like you don't get it till you get it, right? And outsiders
Hmm.
don't really understand it until, and heaven forbid, I don't want anyone else to ever experience it. But
Mm-mm.
once
Mm-mm.
you get it, and you understand that you look just fine, but you're really secretly dying on the inside, fighting this war
Yeah.
constantly within the being. And like I had Bell's palsy, but I didn't have it so drastically. Like I always pictured that it would be like very noticeable. But
Hmm.
when I look back at pictures, I can see the incongruentness in my face and how disformed, in a sense, my left side of my face was. I can't believe no doctors noticed it. Like as
Yeah, it's
soon as I
crazy.
started doing something called quick tick tips when I could think again, I videoed things on to do on social media to like explain to people or spread awareness. And that's when I really noticed the Bell's palsy. And that's what pushed me to ultimately go to a Lyme literate doctor myself because it's not cheap, right? Like it's expensive. These doctors aren't covered by
Hmm.
insurance. And,
Mm-mm.
as a young person, it's like, how the heck am I going to afford this? I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
but off you go. And um, I'm glad for you that it was sort of a short, like, it's
Yeah.
not short at all because that's a really long time of your life. Like, I'm putting together the time, like, it's at least a year that you're consumed with recovery.
Yeah, at least, and I'm grateful too, because if I wasn't married and I was a single parent, I couldn't have afforded that treatment. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in that position. And so I'll forever be grateful for that. And I look back at these pictures like you do, and you can see at my eyes, they're exhausted, and the inflammation in my face, just you can see it when you look back.
Yes.
And I think by the time I was diagnosed with Lyme and the time I started feeling better, it was probably a year with 6 solid, really rough months. Because I think once I started feeling better, I started teaching a little bit of yoga. I dabbled my way back into real life, and I didn't go
Yes.
back to work full time until a couple of years ago because I couldn't. And then I still, like I said, I had these days and moments where I'm like, uh-oh, do I have Lyme again? And I've only had my implants out for about a year and a half.
Okay.
So I was still struggling off and on, constant bronchitis, chronic bronchitis, and brain fog and inflammation and things like that until about a year and a half ago.
Huh.
So it's crazy to be like, "Ooh, I'm at 100% because I fought Lyme and won." And then you're like, "Wait a minute. No, now I'm at 100%." And I know I'm not at 100% now because I've been there. But
Yeah.
once you fight it and you're better, you're like, "Wow, I was really bad." Like I was at like 40%. Like my brain was
Yes.
working at 30% and my mind was barely there.
Yes. That's something that's really wild to me to think about is like, you don't really realize how sick you are until you get better.
Yeah.
And I think about that for a lot of people is like, I kept getting told that it was just stress and that I was healthy and there was nothing wrong with me, right? But my whole world, like I couldn't even get off the couch. Like something's got to be
Mm-mm.
wrong with me. And
Yeah.
then it's that whole psychological game of like, okay, doctors keep telling me there's nothing wrong with me. So I guess I'm fine. But how many people get told that and they just live like that and they suffer through and they take
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals or do whatever else they're told or they get a hip replacement or a knee
Yeah.
replacement because couldn't possibly be anything else. It's just your body is just how it is and you're totally
Yeah.
fine. Like
They're band-aids, band-aids,
yeah,
band-aids.
that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
scary. But when you get yourself to a place where you're able to think again, you're healthy again, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize how close I was to falling off the edge. I did not have a
Yeah.
clue how sick I was. I knew I didn't feel well, but like seeing it now again when you're healed, it's like, whew, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I didn't tap out. Like I have no idea how I'm
Yeah.
still here.
And
And
I know
so,
people really, obviously, their health is priority, right? But once you've been sick, and again, I know I wasn't as sick as most. I know that it could have been far worse. I know there are far worse things to have. But once you've been sick, you protect your body and your health in a whole nother level.
yes.
And if you
Yes.
don't, then I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine once it gets taken away from you and you get it back. Like I vowed to myself, I've never been lazy, but I will never be lazy because now not being able to like be active, it killed my mental game and my physical game. But I'm like, I will never not be physical.
Yes.
Like, because it got taken away from me. And
Yes.
now that I
Yes.
have it back, I'm not losing it again. And I will do what
Yes.
so if that means modifying things so I don't get hurt, so be it. Just it's a different perspective, I think, once you've been through something like that.
Yes. And it's funny when you say that because I can remember when before I got diagnosed, I'd be in a spin class or I'd be doing whatever, and it was like so hard. And I'd be like, Anne, there are people who are literally not, they don't have legs. They can't
Yeah,
get up and do this kind of thing. So
right.
you need to keep pedaling, even though I felt like I was gonna just fall off the bike and just drop over dead. But like I was like, keep going, girl, keep moving, because there are people who
Hmm.
cannot even do this. And so you got to just go. Um,
Yeah,
But like, I'm just again really glad that you were able to fix yourself and get your
me
life
too.
back because,
Me too.
I'm also thinking about times when it was like, I remember when I started to feel human again, right? Like I was a shell of a human. I was a living, breathing zombie, is what I can conceptualize it for people.
Mm,
Like the lights were on and nobody was home. And the minute the lights started coming back on, I was like, yes. But I had moments like you where I started to regress and I was terrified. I was like, I
yeah,
can't go back to zombie zone. I cannot go back to zombie zone. Like I got to figure something else out. I got to maybe more supplements, maybe more sweating, maybe more whatever is going to save me from going back into zombie zone because
right.
that's like worse than going to
Yeah,
jail. I mean, that
yeah.
was just horrible. And so, something else I was just thinking about is like one of my favorite questions to ask people, and you maybe touched on it a little bit, but really, what is the best thing that's happened to you as a result of getting Lyme and tick-borne illness?
I would say just being in tune of my body,
Mm.
um, knowing that if being my own advocate. So I've had other issues since Lyme disease and I might have ignored them in the past, but it's almost like that intuition that's just on high alert now, like at a random spot. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. It ended up being squamous cell,
Huh.
skin cancer. And I'm like, what would Cara before Lyme disease have even paid attention to that? Probably not. And the breast implant illness thing, like I'm like, I still don't feel right. This isn't right. This isn't right. There's been so many incidences within my physical body where I've known something was wrong and I've listened to my body. I allow myself to rest now, which I never would have before Lyme disease. And and I'm my own advocate. And if I have to pay out of pocket to see the person that's going to fix it fast, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it the first time the right way so that I don't have to and I've invested in myself. Like part of it's probably being a little bit older. My kids are older now, but like somebody once asked me what I did for self-care, and I wasn't really sure what that meant. Like,
Oh,
what is self-care? Well, now I know. Like, if I'm feeling run down, you can nap. If I'm feeling like I need a detox, I get in my sauna. Like, I'm not afraid to put myself first and to take care of my mental and physical body because I know what's going to happen and how I'm going to feel if I don't.
good job.
And I
Good
never
job.
would have done that before. Never. And I think females tend to take care of other people first. Moms take care of other people's first. I've always been like a caretaker um and so now it's like my kids are in college and so I'm an empty nester. So not only am I like I've learned to try to put my health and wellness first, well, I don't have anyone else to take care of but myself. And so if my health is wrong, if something's off, then it's on me, nobody else to fix it.
That's right. And like that's a really beautiful gift for one, but like what an inspiration and like what a good example that you're setting for other women in particular who are going through this because I often will talk to people about that very thing. Like I've become an Ayurvedic practitioner. Ayurveda is a holistic medicine system.
Yeah.
But one of my things that I'm working on right now is putting together a workshop to teach women about how to self-care, how to take care of themselves, how to hear themselves. And a lot of times I think we are givers, we are caretakers, and we kind of maybe miss the analogy of like if our cup has nothing in it, what do we have to give to people? If we pour everything out that we have nothing left for self or to give to other people. And so we really have to shift that paradigm that we've been taught to put ourselves last. We need to put ourselves first. We need to make that a really big priority. Our self and our health and our well-being is at play there. And like if we're not pouring into ourselves first, there is nothing left to give to other people. And again,
Yeah.
you're a very strong role model. I feel this, and I'm sure that you
Oh,
have
thank you.
inspired quite a few people on this journey to fix themselves. And like, I don't even want to say fix because we're never really broken. We're just in a different place. Like we need to arrive at a more healthful place or a place that serves us better, right? We've learned all these
Mm-hmm.
bad habits that kind of keep us sometimes in a space that a bad habit space, and we just have to relearn how to be. And that's to me what it sounds like you've really come full circle with is just relearning how to be a more healthful human. And the fact that you're willing to share your story this way, the fact that you were blogging about it as you were going through it, that people can backtrack and find you in that time and space. Like you can even go back and see yourself then, and it's like, woof, man, I've come so far. But I
Mm-hmm.
just really appreciate that because
Yeah.
sometimes people, we're all we're all just doing the best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
But I think God picks some of us in particular for this journey
I agree.
because we're able to be so strong and committed to the outcome and to help others. Like we're carrying others just by being who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily appreciate that sometimes, I think, when we're living in our own skin. But I just want to call you out on that particular thing. And just, I have this vision of you just like carrying all these people on your back. It really actually makes me want to cry just because
Oh,
like I feel your heart and your energy, and I'm just very grateful for you. And I'm just really glad that you got better and that you can be this role model for other people. And so, if you're inspired by Cara's story today, um, like I am, and I'm so grateful for these moments because they changed me ultimately for the better in the long run too. And I'm sure I would think that you're open for people to reach out to you if
Oh,
they so
absolutely.
choose, and you would be happy to talk to them about it. And my other guest who had used the same protocol, um, some of the stuff that she was sharing, um, was not there for people to see then. And so it made it a little bit harder for people who are listening to her story to find out that information. So I think if they can connect with you directly, that is
Yeah,
probably best. So if you're open to that,
absolutely.
like grateful for that. And I don't know what would be the best way for people to contact you if they are wanting to. Are you on social
Um,
media? Do you have like
yeah, so I'm on social media as I believe it's Cara Peebles on Instagram. It's private, but you can DM me, Cara Peebles on Facebook, or you can email me at Cara, Cara, P like Peter, Scott, Scott at gmail.com.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. And I
Of
do. I'm so
course.
glad that Cara put us in touch with each other
Me
because I
too.
love
Me
women like
too.
you. You're just very strong and solid and committed to the truth, right? Like there's a lot of misconception about this. There's a lot of um rabbit holes people can get sucked down. It's really easy to just get stuck in an unhealthful state of mind. And you identify sometimes as your sickness versus choosing to look at healing and to be the thought of like I'm going to get better no matter what. I'm committed to
Yeah.
myself and I know I'm going to heal. And it's just again very nice to have other people like you on this planet who are doing the same mission, and I just really
Thank you.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Ian.